Abraham Lincoln grew up in Hardin County, Kentucky, in a log cabin. He was an avid reader, but never received a formal education. He did manual labor in many places until he began his political career, and was elected into the Illinois state legislature in 1834. It was then when he decided to study law in 1837. He began practicing as a lawyer. However, he discovered that Illinois didn't provide enough cases to provide a good income. So, in 1847, he became a member of the U.S. House of Representatives, where he served one term until 1849. After that, he went back to Illinois to be a lawyer again. When the Republican Party was made, it ignited Abraham Lincoln's interest in politics again, and he joined the Republican Party in 1856. He debated in the Scott v. Stanford case, declaring that a house divided cannot stand. This event allowed Lincoln to join national politics, and in 1860, political operatives in Illinois supported Abraham Lincoln for presidency. Lincoln won the election and became the President of the United States. Before his inauguration, 7 states seceded from the Union and the Civil War began. In 1861, John Merryman was arrested because he attempted to prevent Union troops from moving to Washington from Baltimore. He was held in Fort McHenry. He requested his writ of habeas corpus so he can get a trial, but Abraham Lincoln denied it. The writ of habeas corpus is the right requiring a person under arrest to be brought before a judge. In Article 1, Section 9, Clause 2 of the Constitution, it says, "The privilege of the writ of habeas corpus shall not be suspended unless when in cases of rebellion or invasion the public safety may require it." The question is whether or not President Lincoln had the right to suspend his writ of habeas corpus. Federal Judge Roger Taney ruled that he did not have the right to suspend Merryman's writ of habeas corpus, but Abraham Lincoln didn't respond and he kept Merryman under custody. He claimed that he needed to keep Merryman under custody because he needed to stifle the rebellion in the South. People argued over whether or not Lincoln had the right to suspend the writ. The question is whether or not the President or Congress has the right to suspend the writ. This clause in the Constitution, saying that the writ of habeas corpus can be suspended, is found in Article 1 of the Constitution. Many argue that President Lincoln didn't have the power to suspend the writ because Article 1 deals with the legislative branch. However, Lincoln ignored all of this and kept Merryman in custody. He said, "Now it is insisted that Congress and not the executive is vested with the power, but the Constitution itself is silent as to which or who is the exercise the power, and as the provision was plainly made for a dangerous emergency, it cannot be believed the framers of the instrument intended that in every case the danger should run its course, unless Congress could be called together." His argument was that the Constitution doesn't specify who has the right to suspend the writ, and that it was a state of emergency, and that they didn't have time to get Congress together to argue over the ordeal. So, he took matters into his own hands and to keep the rebellion down. He also said that one of the main goals of the executive branch is to preserve public safety, and he suspended Merryman's writ because he was a threat to the public. Overall, President Lincoln's decision to suspend the writ of habeas corpus was not one of his best decisions, but it was one to keep the public safe and end the rebellion in the South. His decision to suspend the writ went unnoticed at the time because of the war. Because of this, President Lincoln was able to extend the powers of the executive branch. Not long after this event, President Lincoln released the Emancipation Proclamation and the Civil War was over. John Wilkes Booth assassinated President Lincoln 5 days after the Union surrendered. President Lincoln is remembered as the great emancipator because of his efforts to end slavery and the Civil War. Today, he is remembered as one of the greatest presidents in American history.